Hello, my name is Katie Surber, and today I'm going to be talking to you about using augmented reality in the classroom with Metaverse. Now, while I do focus my example on the high school classroom, I do believe that Metaverse and the skills that are discussed today can be used in any classroom setting, from elementary school all the way through higher education. So I have two main objectives and goals for this presentation. The first is to gain an understanding of augmented reality and its importance in the classroom. For this objective, we will define augmented reality, explain how it has become a part of education, explain its importance in education, and then give some steps to prepare your classroom for augmented reality. The second objective and goal is to learn how to create your own augmented reality exercises using Metaverse. As part of this, I will introduce you to the Metaverse platform, explain its mission, preview the webpage with you, and then go through the steps to create your own experience for the classroom. Go ahead and get started with our first objective, which is to define and understand augmented reality. So if you participated in the great phenom of 2016 of Pokemon Go, then you took part in augmented reality. Or if you ever went to the Lego store and held up the Lego box to the screen to see what the Lego set would look like once it was put together, you took part in augmented reality. Or if you downloaded the IKEA app and held the image up to your living room to see what that new IKEA couch would look like in your living room, you also practice augmented reality. So even though you probably never realized it, augmented reality has become a part of our world more than you might have expected. So what exactly is augmented reality? Augmented reality, it is a form of virtual reality where our real world is enhanced. So unlike virtual reality where the entire experience is changed, augmented reality changes our world just a piece. So virtual aspects are mixed together with our reality. And it does so by inserting computer-generated content into our real-world environment. So this can happen by displaying images on screens, glasses, head-mounted displays, but more popular, which is how you have probably experienced it, through handheld devices or through our mobile phones. So there are several different ways that are types of augmented reality, and this is true in how you have probably experienced it, and of course how you can set up for it to be used in your classroom. The first way, which is known as marker-based AR, or as I've noted here on the slide, through codes. This is known as image recognition, where a visual object is set up for the camera to scan. So if you've ever scanned a QR code or a special sign to learn more information, we see this quite often now on real estate signs, where it says scan here to learn more about this property. And then you scan and an image appears on your screen. This is just a form of augmented reality where the camera or device recognizes the code and then the image is then displayed on your screen. And you can use this in your classroom as well. You can create codes where your students scan the code and then the image is displayed. And we'll go over some of those examples later in the presentation. The second type is the object recognition. And this was my example of going to the Lego store and holding the Lego box up and then seeing the entire set displayed on the screen. So in object recognition, the object itself is recognized and then displayed. So toy companies use this quite often, but it also can be used in another example I gave, which was the IKEA catalog app. So object recognition can also be used to take an object and put it into your original view. So in the IKEA catalog app, and they are not the only one, there are other companies that do this as well, they allow that piece of furniture or that object, that virtual item, to be displayed into your room. So it recognizes the object. The last type, which is the one that I think most of us instantly picture when we think augmented reality, is that idea of a projection or a hologram. And that is, of course, when a synthetic light is projected onto the physical surface to make an object appears. All of these kinds of augmented reality can be used in the classroom, and we're going to look at different examples of each kind through the apps that we use. So if you are somebody that has not used augmented reality in the past and definitely have not used it in the classroom before, you might be asking yourself, how did we get here? How did we get to this point where we are using augmented reality in the classroom as a way to reach our students? And I think that there's really two main reasons that we are at this point where augmented reality has become our reality. And these two main reasons are, aside from, of course, the shift in the digital world where we live in general. The first main reason is just simply the rising cost and the inefficiency of textbooks. Textbooks, as we know, are a billion-dollar industry. And they have been a billion-dollar industry for many years. Public education and private education is also a revolving door of students where each year there is a new class and a new need of textbooks, and curriculum itself is continually changing. So when the budget is made and a huge portion is going towards textbooks, we are, of course, missing out on other needs amongst the school. And there is a frustration when it comes to the money spent on textbooks and then the replacement needed every couple years. And we hear this quite often amongst college students, of course, but they're not alone. We're spending hundreds of dollars per student on textbooks in high school, middle school, and elementary school as well. And so with the rising cost of textbooks, as educators began to seek out ways to replace this cost, publishers listening to them developed digital teaching platforms, which you may have used at some point in your classrooms. If you ever use something like McGraw-Hill Connect or Cengage Learning, the digital teaching platforms were a step in the right direction to try to keep up with the idea of digital books that were becoming more common, and of course to try for the publishers to become a part of this new digital world. The problem with digital teaching platforms was that they were not necessarily engaging enough for the students. And many times they had to be used at the same time as the textbooks, especially for college students. College students had to purchase the textbook and the access code. So it became a double cost. And then the high school students, while they had access to the digital teaching platforms, the teacher still had to teach from the textbook and then access the digital teaching platform. The digital teaching platform was really just online exercises and drills. And while they like to say that it catered to individual teaching style, because it did adjust to, if a student was missing a quiz, it could go back and recognize that they missed so many from a specific type. So for instance, in a math class, if they were doing one type of formula and that student was missing so many questions in a row of that type of equation, the program would recognize and adjust. But it wasn't at the same time really catering to the students' needs, because after so many drills, students could catch on and click and move on, click and move on. And for auditory learners, it wasn't as successful. For kinesthetic learners, it definitely wasn't that successful. So there was still a gap in the education, and it was becoming more obvious. So although there was a step in the right direction, it lacked creativity, and there was still a frustration for the cost. So, of course, as the students want more and as the teachers want to be more creative, to reach more students, to be able to individualize education plans, and as our digital world changes and gains, augmented reality becomes the step in the next direction. So why augmented reality? When we have access to so much other things, why should you include augmented reality in your education and in your classroom? There's many reasons, but I've come up with what I think to be 7 of the strongest reasons why. First one, there's simply just more interaction when augmented reality is used in the classroom. The students are interacting more with the material. They have to, of course, the images are displayed on the screen, so they have to talk directly with the content. They have to, the image pops up and they interact with the image. They have to interact with each other. A lot of times the augmented reality work in groups. So it's not just reading the content, it's really talking directly to the object itself before you can move on. This goes on to the next point, which is it leads to stronger motivation and engagement. Studies in augmented reality show that there's a level of excitement when it comes to it. And why wouldn't there be? If you were given the option when you were 16 years old to read a textbook or to play with an app where a lion jumps out in front of you, which one's going to be more exciting for you? Chances are it's the lion jumping out in front of you. So there's this level of excitement and motivation amongst students where now I don't have to just sit and learn about the planets. The planets will appear in my classroom. Or I don't have to just memorize a math formula. The numbers will jump out at me. So there's engagement there that might not have been there previously, which leads to a stronger motivation amongst the students to want to try and want to see what happens next. Unlike digital platforms where individualized learning didn't happen as easily as they had expected, augmented reality does allow individualized learning. You can create apps for students, and students can work through those apps as quickly or as slowly as they would like. And each student can work on something different too. You don't have to have each student on the same exercise at the same time. It also, I think, opens up the door for, if you're a visual learner, if you're an auditory learner, if you're a kinesthetic learner, augmented reality includes all of that. The third reason is that it is budget friendly, especially when you're comparing it to the textbooks and even the digital platforms that we just discussed. Most teenagers today have their own devices, and for those that do not, the solution would be to partner up. The apps that are offered, most of them are free. There's very limited in-app purchases, so that's very easy for you to work around and find a solution by looking for a free app in place of the ones that are asking for purchases. And Metaverse, that I'm going to show you later, is a free service where you can create your own rather than purchasing or downloading apps to devices. Lastly, students learn skills that can be used in other settings. When you are using augmented reality, the students have to use critical thinking skills. They have to ask, what do I already know? How can I solve this problem? What is it asking me to do next? How am I working with my partner? So these are all social skills and critical thinking skills that we want our students to develop. And a textbook alone isn't going to develop these skills, but augmented reality will. And this builds right on the next one, which is that it promotes understandings that might not otherwise occur. We can try to teach our students physics, and sometimes that just doesn't click. But if they are looking at a game where physics is part of the augmented reality, that understanding can click. Or we might be trying to teach them the inner workings of our body and it's just not clicking. But again, a diagram that comes to life, it's going to click. So it promotes understandings that might not otherwise occur. And last, which is fairly obvious, that we live in a digital age and we don't want to leave our students behind. So using augmented reality puts our students a part of this digital age that's important for them to be a part of. So how do I get my classroom ready? To me, that's the best part. There's really nothing you have to do to get your classroom ready. Your students will either need to bring their own digital devices or you will have to provide some. So whether that's devices that you have, that your high school has, if you need to ask for donations or volunteers to bring additional ones, but devices will be needed. I would encourage you to download the apps that we talk about today, or apps that you find on your own prior to the class, of course. So either tell your students to have them downloaded before they come in, or if you are providing the device, they have already been pre-downloaded. If there's any coloring sheets, this would be for the younger children classrooms. If there's any coloring sheets or codes that you want them to scan, you of course would want those printed out beforehand. And some teachers do find it easier to move the classroom around, especially if the students are going to be moving around as part of the activity. So if you have not already put your classroom into clustering, that would be a good time to do so. But beyond that, there's really nothing that you have to do to get ready. So now that you are familiar with augmented reality and its importance in education, let me introduce you to Metaverse. Metaverse is an online studio that allows you to make your own augmented reality experiences for your classroom. Their vision is to make creating and using augmented reality easy for anyone. So if you have ever been intimidated by the idea of using augmented reality, and definitely intimidated by the idea of creating your own, Metaverse is extremely user-friendly, and they make it that anyone could really get on there and learn how to create their own experiences and then apply them in the classroom. Their online studio offers free, already developed AR experiences. Other users, as they build, can upload and share the experiences that they have created. And then with plenty of support and tutorials, it is a user-friendly way to build your own AR experiences. So how can I use Metaverse in the classroom? Metaverse can be used for several different things, but I put down some of the main ways that I think that Metaverse can be used. The first one is for any sort of storytelling or interactive stories. For young children, you can easily take stories that you have talked about in class and create interactive adventures for them. For instance, sight words can be taken from just flashcards to storytelling to interactive hunts for them. For older children, high school age, you could take something that might seem boring during the first read, like a Shakespeare play, and make it into an AR reality where they are following the story and they're interacting with the characters in the story. Scavenger hunts and choose your own adventures, both are very common in Metaverse. Scavenger hunts can be used to solve a mystery throughout the classroom. It's a good way, of course, to review material. And then choosing your own adventures allows the students to, as we mentioned at the beginning, to use those critical analysis skills to work together to come up with reasoning and then to defend the choices that they make. So there's this opportunity to bring in some of those outside skills that I talked about when it comes to augmented reality and what it can offer that textbooks or digital media may not be able to. Challenges, that's one of the things that I'm going to run through, just how to build a basic challenge. Games, you can create any sort of game on Metaverse. It can be one that's just for fun. It could be one that's a review of the material. Quizzes. This one I know a lot of times we think of quizzes, of course, we're just sitting down, we're taking the quiz, and sure, that's going to work for much of the material that we use in class, but this app does also give you the opportunity to test the students in a more creative way and allow them to have a little bit more fun with their quizzes too. Something as simple as just a attendance check-in. This could be just something that they use on their Metaverse app every day. And something else, because it is so user-friendly, students can build their own experiences as well. So this could be something that you require of your students. Rather than do a book report, they could have to make a Metaverse challenge, or rather than have to do a PowerPoint presentation, a Metaverse challenge, or even when you're doing a science fair, this could be something that they have to create and share at a science fair as well. Before getting started with building an augmented reality experience, I first just want to show you the Metaverse platform so that you can be familiar with the overall layout of the programs that they offer. So this is your homepage. As you can see, Metaverse offers things in augmented reality and mobile games, even some interactive memes. They have it separated to explain how it's useful for educators, marketers, and storytellers. If you click on the educator link, it reviews a lot of the things that we have talked about earlier in the presentation, the importance of augmented reality in education, the different ways that augmented reality can be used, how Metaverse can be used. There's also some links here of some pre-built ones if you wanted to visit just to see what some of the finished products could look like. But more important, you could see that this is something that can be used really in any subject. There's one here built for the American Revolution, one on science, one on periodic table, one on the mountain lion. So this is not something that's exclusive to a specific subject. Really, any classroom and any age group. There's 7th grade, 5th grade, 11th grade. This is something that is user-friendly in any classroom in any subject. So let's go back here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and click on the Get Started. Now the first thing that it's going to suggest for you to do is to download the app to your device. Now, although you build your experience here in the studio, and I find using the computer to be the easiest way to build the experience, to use the actual experience, you would need to have the Metaverse app. And you would do that either in the Apple Store or in Google Play. And you can see right now it is able to be used on a phone, a tablet, or a Chromebook. The Chromebook is something that I know is really important in the high school setting or in the classroom setting in general. I know many schools do use Chromebooks, and so that is really great that this is something that you can use on a Chromebook as well. So I would encourage you to download the app before you start to build your experience. That way you can test your experience directly before you share it. And I would also be sure that you have it pre-installed for any device that your students are going to be using. Over here on the left-hand side, where you can search and visit other augmented reality experiences. Now, I'll go ahead and click on Most Popular just to show you. Many people use Metaverse. It's not just for teachers. So there are some games here that you could click through and visit. And I should say to you that you'd want to pre-screen really any of the games before you let your students play them. Since everyone can build one, you can imagine there's quite a variety of games from which they could choose. So you would want to visit if you're giving them free time. Be sure that you're limiting where they're visiting for the most popular ones. The search tab is where you could find where other people have created and shared their augmented reality experiences. So for an example, I went ahead and did a search just on the keyword math, which I know is incredibly broad, and as you can imagine has given me many results, but it could give you a broad understanding of some of the different ways that teachers have used math in the past. Some people have done it to introduce specific new math demonstrations. Looks like some people are doing it for review. Math Monday, Math Escape, that would of course be a game. 4th grade math, Math Breakout, Math Integers, Graspable Math. Looks like someone did create a math test out of it, a math challenge. So you can see that, as I talked about, the different ways. There's storytelling, there's hunts, there's challenges. Even in a subject like math, you can be creative using Metaverse. Now I'm going to click on Create Experience. And before getting started with that, I should explain that this is really your first step to doing any of the objectives that you have set. So for any of them, if you're doing a quiz, if you decide that you're creating a scavenger hunt, if you're going to build a game, everything begins here on this screen with building your experience. Now I'm just going to take you through building the first step to an experience. So this is going to be a pretty straightforward, easy one, but it will cover all the steps that are needed that you would then build upon for the next step. So basically I'm going to be doing a one-question experience. The first thing that I want to do is I'm going to name my experience, of course. For me, I'm going to develop one for an English class. And it's just a sample, but I'm going to call it Name That Shakespeare Play. Now down here, this is the very first scene of your experience. So this is what's going to greet the students when they begin. Now you want to be sure that you select a character. The characters are pre-stored here in Metaverse. You are always welcome to add your own character, but there are so many from which you could choose that I'm not sure if that's something that would be necessary. But if you want to be creative, I did see one example of a teacher one time that took a picture of herself, and that was her character. So there's tons. Over here on the left, you can see it's broken down into categories. But since I'm doing a Shakespeare one, I'm just going to go ahead and search for Shakespeare. And I'm going to use my silly Shakespeare. Now I need to add a dialogue, what I want him to say. Now since this is my first scene, I want it to be sure that the students know that this is the activity that they're going to be working on. So I'm just going to go ahead and type, hey, want to guess what play I am thinking about? Now I need to add my next scene, which is going to actually start the challenge with them. Now to add a new scene, I clicked at Add New, and it's going to take you to this screen, which is all the different kinds of scenes that you could add into your experience. So there's the character scene, the text input scene, and some of these we're going to come back to later. So we're going to revisit a lot of these later. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and do my character scene. And I'm going to continue using Shakespeare, this particular Shakespeare again. So I'm going to go ahead, so far he's asked, hey, want to guess what play I was thinking, or what play I am thinking about. And then over here, I'm going to have him say, great. Let's get started. Now I'm going to add actions to this slide. My actions are buttons that they're going to be selecting. So my button responses, I'm going to have one which are get a clue. My next one will be guess the play. And then I'm going to have a final one, which is exit. Now, the next thing that I need to be sure is that each scene, that this scene 1 transitions to scene 2. So where you see this orange exclamation point, I'm going to go ahead and click on that, And down here you can see where it says my transition control. Right now it's set to do nothing, but I want it to transition to a scene, and I'm going to have it transition to scene 2. Now these two are linked directly together. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to add my clues. So the play that I have in mind is, I'll go ahead and cheat and tell all of you, but the play I have in mind for them to guess is Hamlet. So my goal is to add 3 clues, and starting from what I would be the hardest clue to the easiest clue, and each team would be working together, and they could guess based on whichever clue they know first. So some teams might get it after the first clue, some teams might take the second clue, or up until the 3rd clue. So I'm going to add 3 clues. So again, I'll go up here to the add new. I'm still adding a new scene. I'm going to stick with Shakespeare again. His dialogue here, I'm going to put, my father tried to have 2 friends spy on me. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do another scene. Let's see, we'll go with my girlfriend fell from a tree and drowned. And then I will do one more clue. We'll make it kind of my easy one. So I questioned to be or not to be. Okay, so those are now my 3 clues. So to make this a little bit easier to work with, I'm going to bring all these scenes down here so that we can kind of, they're all together. All right. Now let me go back up here, and I'm going to go ahead and set some actions to these exclamation points. Now for my exit one, my transition is, there is no transition, I'm ending the experience. For this one, get the clue, or get a clue, of course I'm going to transition it to my first clue, which is scene 3. Now I need to be sure that each of these scenes transition to the next one, which is why I went ahead and selected Add Action. So I'm going to now transition scene 3 to scene 4. So transition to scene 4. And then scene 4, I need to be sure that I then transition to scene 5. So now here's a little bit, there you go. Now for this one, I want to be sure, now that I've given 3 clues, we want it to go back to their option to either guess the play or do the clues once again. So this action, I'm going to transition back to scene 2. Now I need to create a scene where they're going to give their guess for the play. So let's do Add New. Now this one, I'm going to select the text input screen. This will allow them to type directly onto the screen. So this is my text input. I'm going to go ahead and link my guess the play to scene 6. And if I want to, now would be, I could change the character, I guess, maybe because they decided it would be a good time to guess. So let's change them. And let's do our dialogue could be, type the name of the play below and earn a point for your team. Now it's where they're going to type a response. Now before I put in the type a response part, let me move this over a little bit. I'm going to go back up here to Add New. Now over here on the left, I'm going to create string. And I'm selecting the lowercase text Now what this does is it will automatically recognize things as lowercase. So if for some reason the student types Hamlet with a capital H, or messes up and makes the L capitalized or something, it's not going to mark it wrong because of that. So we're going to go ahead and go to lowercase text, and I need to link these two together. So this time I'm going to do transition to block, and I'm going to transition to the lowercase text block. Okay, now I'm going to do another add new, and again I'm going to also do over here on the left, I will select a string again, and this time I'm going to select the response contains. This is so it will recognize when they type in the correct word, it will recognize that input. So over here, my response contains, I'm going to type Hamlet. And now I want to, okay, the next thing that I need to do is add two scenes, one for if the students guess correctly, and then one if the students guess incorrectly. So I'll go ahead and just choose two scenes now. Bring that down so we can all see. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and change the character. Let's do this one if we win. And then we'll do this one if we lose. So let's start down here if they guess incorrectly. Let's go with just something like, no, sorry, that's not it. And then my action is going to be try again. Now, since they're going to try again, I need to go ahead and add a transition back to that options screen. So let's go back to my scene 2. That way they can decide if they want to try again by getting clues, or if they want to try again by guessing the play once more. And then up here, this is if they had guessed correctly. So let's go with, yay, great job. Now before moving on, we do need to go back to the response contains box. This is where we put our correct answer in. And remember, our correct answer was Hamlet. Now down here, if my response does not contain, then I need to transition to that no sorry. So that was scene 8. And then if the response does contain Hamlet, then we're going to transition to scene 7. So the next thing that I'm going to add, which is fun, is a fun way to keep track of the winners, is a winner wall. And so I'm going to add new, and this is a camera scene. And here in the camera scene, my options are front-facing camera, and you have the option to include a photo and video, photo only, video only. For this one, I'm just going to do the photo only. And if they're correct, then this is where I'm going to add that transition to go over here to scene 9 so that they can begin to take their picture for the winner's wall. And now the next step is to create my photo wall. So I will click Add New, and then I will go over here to Camera, and I'm going to Upload to Photo Wall. And this is where it's going to ask me to create a photo wall. So I will just call this Shakespeare Winners. Now I need to open this up, so I have this tab opened, and then I also need to be sure to copy right here between those quotes. Now I can go back and return to return back to my storyboard. Now I have my upload here to my photo wall, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and insert my photo ID that I copied. Go ahead and add my transition for my transition 9 to go to that photo wall. And now when the students take a picture, it will upload directly to that photo wall for them to be able to see the different winners as they play the game. So the next thing that you can do is that they can collect prizes as they go along to show that they've completed each of the challenges. So let's go ahead and do another add new. This time I'm going to do a give an item scene. Move this down here. Let's go ahead and select our item. Now I went ahead and saved a snake in here already. So that's for the prize or the point that we're going to give them. So you could preset different things that they have to collect along the way so that as they complete each question, they collect a prize along the way. So this time we're going to go ahead and give them a snake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this transition to a scene, and that would be back to scene 10. Which would then give them a prize after they take their picture. It's uploaded to the wall, and then they collect their points. Okay, so now we're ready to test the experience that we built. So for this, I had to switch over to the app, which you can see I'm using a smaller device for, but again, it is compatible for Apple devices as well. Now, since this is our first time seeing the app, you could see that as similar to the web page, there's some trending ones that you could choose. There's the featured ones, and then down here, our category education, some trivia, some different challenges, some fun games, like what are you, would you rather. So there's a lot of fun things that the students could do, and then of course you could visit the education category and find some pre-made experiences as well. So let's go down to the profile. And then name that Shakespeare play. That's the experience that we just made. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our experience. And there's the avatar that we created. And hi, welcome to the challenge. Your goals is to guess my play. Ready to get started? Yes, give me a clue. My father sends 2 spies. And then our second clue, my girlfriend falls from the tree and drowns. I question to be or not to be. Okay, now we're back to the screen to name that play. Okay, name the play correctly and earn a point for your team. So let's go ahead and let's say the first time, let's get it wrong. And we went with Macbeth. And then there's our error guy. Oh no, that's not it. Try again. Okay, now this time we'll go for Hamlet. And there's the correct guy. You got it. Now, here's the part where it's asking us for a photo. Now, here's the part where, remember we set it up to give me a prize? There's the point for my team. And then, great job. Do we want to view the winners for this round, or do we want to start the next challenge? Well, let's view the winners. And it's me. I won a lot. So now we'll give you a sample of what this challenge would look like. Well, now that you have watched an experience be created, you might be asking, what can you do next? The first thing I would encourage you to do is to visit the Metaverse webpage and create an account. Remember, it's free, so this is a great resource just to have and to give a try. There's no commitment to it. I would encourage you to visit and interact with some of the created experiences. As I showed you, both in the computer and on the app, that there are so many experiences that have already been created and shared that you could use. If you're not immediately comfortable creating your own, you can get started with augmented reality just by using some of those created experiences. I would encourage you to look through your upcoming lessons and see how a simple experience could be used in them. As you saw, this could be used not just for any age group, but really any sort of subject or category within that subject. So there's so much in that augmented reality categories and so many different kinds. You could use it for a quiz, or you could just use it for a fun scavenger hunt, or just a fun review to have in your classroom. And I would encourage you to get started by creating a simple experience like the one that I showed you today. A simple experience, there are not many steps, and there's so much that you can do just in that simple experience. So thank you, and hopefully you have enjoyed learning about Metaverse, and I hope that you are able to try it in your classroom and that you are able to experience the benefits of augmented reality, both for you as an educator and for your students.